commencer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you all for coming. How nice to be here with you all. So today, are you ready? We hope you're ready. We are going to have an educational seminar in Krishna consciousness. Yes, today we are hoping, we want that we can all learn something. Oh, Hare Krishna. Yeah, we want you today to approach things in the sense that, like students, that we're trying to learn something and not just, you know, sort of a more casual, or some, you know, sometimes people look for entertainment when they come to a program, a devotee program. But today we hope the experience can be more educational. And the basic idea today is to examine different devotee activities, different devotee behaviors, different types, different aspects of devotee etiquette, Vaishnav etiquette, what to do, what not to do. This is the idea, to look at different aspects of devotee life and devotee attitudes and consciousness, with examples in some cases where these things are illustrated. Sometimes we find very good examples in the activities of Lord Chaitanya, the activities of some of his associates, in the activities of Lord Krishna himself, how to behave, how to conduct ourselves as devotees. Because in many ways, this is something we have to learn. We're not brought up in that way. We're brought up in some type of material way, and the different habits and social ways of dealing and like that which we've learned or just been brought up with, they're often not correct. And sometimes they are just extremely incorrect. Really, it's amazing. So in many ways, when it comes to how to be a devotee, how to conduct oneself, how to interact with different types of people, in many ways we have to learn these things. learn and then practice and develop good habits. And of course, if we practice like that, doing the right things, interacting very nicely, then gradually we become used to living like that. It's not like we have to think, what should I do here, what should I not do? But it starts to come more naturally and spontaneously like that. And that's good. But in many ways, because we are prone to have many bad habits due to our upbringing and what we see on television. You don't watch television, do you? All these things, it all has effects, and we develop these habits. And sometimes they say, old habits die hard, something like that. It's hard to break old habits. Prabhupada tells the story of a horse. A horse was about to cross a river, and just as he's about to step in the water, he was approached by a scorpion. And the scorpion asked that, can you take me across the river on your back? Because for me it's just very difficult. I may drown. So can you take me on your back? And the horse said, no, 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 you're a scorpion, you'll bite me. And the scorpion said, no, I won't. If you're helping me, you're doing something for me and facilitating me so kindly, why would I bite you? And the horse said, oh, well, all right then. And he took the scorpion on his back, and they started crossing the river. And at some point in the middle of the river somewhere, suddenly, bang, the scorpion bit the horse. And the horse screamed and said, why did you do that? Why did you do that? You said you wouldn't, and I'm helping you. Why did you do that? And the scorpion said, yes, I know, I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry, but the thing is, it's my nature. So, yeah, we all have acquired natures due to living in this material world for a long time, but many aspects of those acquired natures are not so good, and we want to learn to be better devotees and better people. This is all part of sadhana bhakti, the practice, cultivation of devotional service in systematic ways, not just whimsical ways, not just as I feel like doing it one day, then I feel like doing something else the next day, but in regulated ways. So what I'll do, first of all, I will read a couple of verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And these verses are spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Srila Sanatana Goswami in the Anjalila chapter 4, beginning with verse 129, and we'll read a few other verses. So, let me just see how to do this. And don't mind if I shout at you a little bit. I mean well. So, don't take it personally. Okay, so this is now Lord Chaitanya. Yadyapi tumi hao Jagata Pavana Tomasparshe Pavitrahaya Deva Muni Gana Tatapi Bhakta Swabhava Maryada Rakshana Maryada Palana Haya Sadhura Bhushana. My dear Sanatan, although you are the deliverer of the entire universe, and although even the demigods and great saints are purified by touching you, it is the characteristic of a devotee to observe and protect the Vaishnav etiquette. Maintenance of the Vaishnav etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. So those are two verses spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami. And Lord Chaitanya is glorifying Sanatana Goswami. You are Jagat Pavana. You are the deliverer of the whole universe. And Deva Muni Gana, even the demigods and great munis and saintly people, they are purified by touching you. You're such an amazing person. But still, you maintain the Vaishnava etiquette, the right, proper ways of dealing. What had happened was, Sanatana Goswami was to visit Lord Chaitanya. But where he was staying was on one side of Jagannath Puri, and Lord Chaitanya was staying a little bit on the other side. And Sanatana Goswami, in order to approach Lord Chaitanya's place, he had to pass right in front of the Jagannath temple. And you know, the Jagannath temple, they're very touchy people. They're very hypersensitive. Yes. About their standards and who does what and who can do this and who can't do that. So Sanatana Goswami at the time, he had a very serious skin condition. And it was so serious, he had oozing sores on many parts of his body. It was really terrible. And, well, here's something about Vaishnava etiquette. We will, in a couple of few minutes, we'll talk about dealings with seniors, equals, and juniors. And when it comes to dealing with juniors, then there are different things, different ways to do that. But one very important part of that is to be kind, to be merciful to the juniors, and not, as happens in material life often, that if someone is junior, then we get on their case and put them down. Or, you know, if you've just started working at a job in an office, everybody wants you to get them tea. You become the tea person. They exploit the juniors or abuse the juniors. So Sanatana Goswami, in terms of being merciful to juniors, how's this? How's this? This is not exactly an example we should apply, I mean in specific terms, but it's just very interesting that Sanatana Goswami, he had all these sores, And there were little creatures. Ugh. Little maggots. You know what a maggot is? Little sort of wormy things. Yuck. And they were getting into the sores. Hare Krishna. And sometimes they would fall off. And because Sanatana Goswami was very merciful to juniors, and the maggots were juniors, he would put them back on his swords. Hare Krishna. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that. But the principle is very, extremely important. So anyway, Sanatana Goswami, he had all these sores, and he had to pass by the front entrance of the Jagannath temple to visit Lord Chaitanya. But there's so many people coming and going, and so many priests, because in that temple they have hundreds of priests, and pujaris and cooks and people, and they come and go all the time. And Sanatana Goswami was worried, if I walk past and there's so many people, and people sort of pushing and shoving, you know what it's like sometimes in India, particularly North India. It's just everybody, when there's a bit of a crowd, people tend to push and shove. And these pujaris and priests, he thought, they may touch my body and get some of this stuff from my sores on their body, and that'll contaminate them, and that'll be an offense for me. So therefore he thought, I will take another route. And he walked around the long way and along the beach. And it was summer and it was hot. So he was walking along the beach, and the sand was extremely hot. His feet got burnt. There were like blisters on the bottom of the soles of his feet. And then he came to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya saw this. And Sanatana explained, well, you know, I walked along the beach and so on. And Lord Chaitanya said, why did you do that? Why didn't you just take the direct route? And Sanatana explained, well, I didn't want to contaminate anyone. And then Lord Chaitanya spoke this verse, or these two verses, that you are the deliverer of the universe. Even demigods and great saints, if they touch you, because that was the point, touching him. If they touch you, then they become purified. But still, you did like this, because you didn't want to make an offense. And then Lord Chaitanya said that even for a great advanced devotee, they will generally maintain the Vaishnava etiquettes, those standards of dealing, even if they're way beyond them and they don't need to worry about those things. So it's an important point, and we should note that we really need to learn how to do these things. Like, let me give another example of someone who, even though they were on very high level, and they didn't need to painstakingly maintain all the do's and do nots, but still they did. A very nice example is Raghunath Das Goswami. You may have heard Raghunath Das Goswami, his program was every day he would chant 64 rounds. Then he would give class about Lord Chaitanya for minimum 3 hours. Then he would offer obeisances to deities 1,000 times. And not just, you know, kneel down and down, up. down, up. What Prabhupada called jackknife obeisances, down, up. But full dandavats, 1,000 times to deities, and then 2,000 times to devotees. How's that for a program? Good program? Try it. Report back to us. Tell us how it goes. So as he became old, it became more and more difficult to do this. Particularly the obeisances down, and sometimes he couldn't get up. So one day, some devotees were on parikrama around Radhakund Shamakund, and they came into one temple, and there was Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Das, offering dandavats on the ground in front of the deities. And this group of devotees came and they offered their obeisances also, and then they stood up and they saw Raghunath Das is still on the ground. Is he just offering, some sort of mega dandavats for a long time? Then they understood, no, he can't stand up. He's unable to stand up. So they picked him up and dusted him off a bit and said, you're such a great devotee. You don't need to do this. It's okay. Krishna will understand. Just when you come in front of the deities, just stand there and go, Hare Krishna, or something like that. And you don't need to worry about dandavats and inconveniencing yourself. And Raghunath Das said, oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. I really appreciate your concern, and thanks for the good advice. And they carried on. So then, the next day, that same group of devotees at the same time was going around, and they visited the same temple. And you know what they found? There was Raghunath Das on the ground offering dandavats. So this is what Lord Chaitanya says: maintenance of the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornament of a devotee. A devotee is always glorious and decorated with good qualities and attractive features, and even very beautiful due to the spiritual nature. So just by their Krishna consciousness, they're so wonderful and glorious. But Lord Chaitanya says, still the maintenance of the etiquette is like the ornament of a devotee. So what we'll do now, like I said, let us talk a little bit about etiquette, or ways of dealing between seniors, equals, and juniors. I want you to note this down, because at the end, as you see, you've all got pieces of paper, right? To make notes with. And there's another thing we may do with the pieces of paper. You know what that is? We may have a test. In a little while. So you better note some things down. Because Srila Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, good memory means write it down. Yeah. Don't just trust it to, the voice in there, the mind. Okay, so now there is a foundational verse when it comes to how to deal with seniors equals juniors. there's a very foundational verse spoken by Narada Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam. Make a note of this. It is Srimad Bhagavatam 4:8-34. Got it? 4:8-34. Gunadikan mudam lipsed, anukrosham gunadamat, maitrim samanad anvichchain, natapayar abhi bhuyate. So Narada Muni is saying, every person should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So it's just very briefly giving some of the main points in regard to dealing with those who are senior, those who are equal, those who are junior. Let us just expand slightly. There are two main ways of interacting with someone who is senior. These two main ways are stated by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 34. Who will tell us what is Bhagavad Gita 4:34? Shamagori will. Oh, thank you for volunteering. Shamagori? Yes? I can't hear. You have such a nice smile. Will you tell us? Loud? Cut? Oh, cut. Okay. 4:34, put your hand up. Who's going to tell us? Before I volunteer you. Okay, Mataji, yes. Nice and loud. Well done. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Tell us the translation. Anyway, that's okay. Okay, well done. Just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So we should all learn that verse if we have not done yet. Make a note of that for the test, 4:34. That's a really important verse. It is, of course, most particularly talking about how you interact with the spiritual master, but still, it's also the particular ways of dealing to activities mentioned apply to all seniors. We should inquire and render service. Note that, please. Pariprashna Prashna. Many of you, I'm sure, speak kitchen Hindi or something like that. Prashna. We all know that word, don't we? Of course. Inquire, ask questions. And seva. Pariprashnena sevaya. By inquiring and by serving. So these are the two foundational activities for a person when they are dealing with a person who is senior to them. Inquire and render service. Then, for those equal, well, it's the basic idea is develop friendship. We'll talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. It doesn't just mean hanging out and, hey, how are you doing? Wow. And all that sort of, stuff. But Krishna conscious friendship. And then those who are junior, Narada Muni says you should be compassionate to such people. And that's the basic idea, to try and help them, be kind to them, and sort of protect them. It's the rasa is parental. The rasa to seniors is more dasya. Samastha? Yeah. The rasa of the junior towards the senior is essentially one of dasya, like servitude, like that. And friendship, of course, equals friendship. But towards juniors, the rasa is parental. That mood should be there. So, okay. I want to read one verse here. This is 7:4:31. It is describing the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. I just thought I'd read it briefly because it says sort of the same thing, but it says it in a very poetic way. Prahlad Maharaj was completely cultured as a qualified Brahmin, having very good character and being determined to understand the absolute truth. He had full control of his senses and mind. Like the super soul, he was kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. To respectable persons, just like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he was attached like a sympathetic brother. And he considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older godbrothers to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is very amazing. Very amazing. So now what we will do right now, we will consider who are our seniors. Who are our seniors? Who are they? Well, Krishna's our senior. That's a good place to start. Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, they're seniors. According to what we just read a minute ago from Prahlad Maharaj, senior godbrothers or sisters, they're also seniors. Who else? Parents. Now, of course, your parents may not be devotees, but still they're seniors. And dealings should be done in certain ways even though they may not be devotees, and what to speak of if they are devotees. And how's this? How's this? Fasten your seatbelts. Are you ready? Ladies. According to Shastra and the Vedic tradition, for the wife, the husband is a senior. Hare Krishna. Please, nobody walk up and storm out or start throwing chairs at me. But it's a fact according to Vedic culture. And I mean, let's face it, even in the Western world, it's still the tradition that usually, in many cases, when a man and a woman develop a relationship, in so many, the great majority of cases, the man will be a bit older. It's just, anyway. So don't mind me saying that, ladies. But generally it's like that. And another category, in a certain sense, superiors, seniors who need to be, you know, if not inquired from, at least served. Another category is guests, isn't it? You know what they say? What do they say? Atiti Deva Bhava, is it? Something along those lines. The atiti specifically means the uninvited, untimely guest is like God, Deva, atiti. And what to speak of those who are actually invited. Titi means like a fixed date, a fixed time. We will do something at this time, then it's like a titi. So atiti means just out of the blue. So guests are a type of superior. And, you know, of course it depends on the guest, but at least they should be served. According to Vedic culture, when a guest comes, uninvited, unexpected, just drops in, just like that, then at least you should offer them a place to sit, some water, some food, and some sweet words. And Prabhupada discusses this and says, if you've got no food, then at least a place to sit, some water and some sweet words. If you've got no water, at least a place to sit and some sweet words. If you've got no place to sit, at least some sweet words. And if you've got no sweet words, you're finished. C'est la vie. Firulenge. Yeah. And, you know, all of these dealings with these different types of seniors, they're all extremely important, including guests, where you might say, well, you know, they're kind of like marginal. It's not like your guru or your parents who are really senior to you by age. Guests, yeah, of course we should look after them, but you might think, you know, it's not such a big deal. But, very interesting point, we find in the Bhagavatam, in the, what, 3rd or 4th canto, I forget exactly, but it's there somewhere, Kasyapa Muni walks into his house one day and finds his wife, Diti. He had at least 2, maybe more, but there was Diti and Aditi. So Diti was on the floor, on the ground, just a mess. extremely emotional and just, you know, like half bewildered, just on the ground. And Kasyapa, naturally, he asked her, what's wrong? And she was just so overwhelmed, she couldn't say. So he started suggesting, you know, did this happen? Did that happen? And you know what? The first thing he suggested that might have happened, which might have, he felt, might have upset her so much. You know what that was? He said, did some uninvited guest come and you were not able to look after them? Is that what happened? No, he didn't say, did someone come and beat you up? Did someone come in and insult you terribly? Or, you know, something more extreme. His first suggestion was, were you not able to receive an uninvited, unexpected guest properly? Yeah, so we should note this. These are our seniors. There may be others. You know, the government. Hare Krishna. Anyway. So, like, even parents who are not devotees. There's one devotee named Brahmananda. Some of you may have met him or heard of him. An old disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He's still around, basically. And he joined the movement and moved into the temple and shaved his head and put on dhoti and kurta and tilak, etc., etc. And he didn't tell his parents. He just didn't bother. And then after, like, I'm not sure how long, but several months, after a fair period of time of having had no contact with his parents, although they lived in the same city, somehow he got the idea maybe he should go visit his mother. So he asked Prabhupada, said, you know, I'm going to go visit my mother. Think that's a good idea? And Prabhupada said, yes, you should do that. And he asked Prabhupada, what should I do when I meet her? I mean, what do I say? How should I conduct myself? And Srila Prabhupada said, you should offer your obeisances to her. Yeah, to your mother. So he did. He went home, knocked on the door. His mother opened the door, saw him looking like totally extraordinary by her standards, and then he offered obeisances, and she slammed the door, and that was it. End of the exchange. But that was Prabhupada's idea. Should offer your obeisances. And, yeah, to parents. And you know, there's the story of Bhrigu Muni. Bhrigu Muni tested Lord Brahma, who's his father, Lord Shiva, who is his brother, and Lord Vishnu, by sort of mistreating them. And the first was Lord Brahma, who's his father, and he just walked in, Bhrigu Muni, walked in, and did not offer his obeisances. He just walked in and said something like, "Hi, Dad," or something like that. Very informal. And you know what? Lord Brahma was going to kill him. Yeah. Lord Brahma was going to kill him, and would have killed him, except his wife Saraswati stopped him. He was going to kill him because he felt this is such poor etiquette. This is just such bad manners. So anyway, you know, children, young people, we'll leave that one with you. You can think about it. You can think about it. But to offer respect to parents is a good thing, particularly if they're devotees. And even you see in India these days, from time to time you see some young person with their parents. I was just recently, maybe a couple of years ago, in a train station somewhere in India, and there was one young girl, like maybe late teens or so. She was going on the train to somewhere, and her parents were seeing her off. And what she did, she didn't exactly offer obeisances as we do, but she bowed, leaned over and touched their feet. So that's something you can think about, young people. What do you think, Shamagori? Is that a good idea? Okay, I'll leave that one with you. See how to deal with Ma. When it comes to dealing with the spiritual master, that's an important one. You know, most of us have spiritual masters, I think. And, you know, if nothing else, for those who are practicing, Srila Prabhupada is certainly our spiritual master. So we should really try to take a humble position in front of the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada, well actually Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in fact, in his purport to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 41, should I ask you what is 241, or would that be dangerous? Okay. Anyway. 241? Sorry? No, that's 240. Vyavasayatmaka buddhiya ekeha kurunandana bahushakahyanantascha buddhaya vyavisainam. Those who are on this path are resolute in determination, and their aim is one. Whereas those who are irresolute, their determination, their intelligence is many-branched, splayed consciousness. So in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to that verse, he explains this idea of being one-pointed in seeing ourselves as the servant of our spiritual master and seeing him as the Lord of our life. So he addresses this point in his purport there. And Srila Prabhupada says, Prabhupada explained that one time he was traveling on a train and he had not read this purport before, but on the train he was reading Bhagavad Gita with the purports of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he read this purport. And Prabhupada said that it struck him very deeply. In other words, when he read this purport, it was like a turning point in his life. Because if you read Prabhupada's books and listen to his lectures, etc., you'll see that Prabhupada, he is just repeatedly, time and time again and again, emphasizing taking shelter of the spiritual master, following the instructions of the spiritual master, serving the spiritual master. Just again and again, Prabhupada is emphasizing this point. And he said he really picked it up when he read this purport. So I'm going to just read this. It's just a few, it's like a paragraph. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is emphasizing this point of how we should accept the spiritual master in this context as our senior. So he says, the best kind of intelligence I can have is intelligence used in the service of Krishna. Intelligence is defined as fixed when it is intent upon my spiritual master's instructions, such as chanting the name of Krishna, remembering his activities, and performing service to his lotus feet. My spiritual master's instructions are my sadhana and my life, both in the beginning stages of bhakti as well as in bhakti's perfectional stage. I desire only to follow his instructions. I accept nothing else as my life's work, even in dreams. Whether I'm happy or distressed, whether the material world remains or is destroyed, I do not care. There is no loss for me. I simply must carry out the orders of my spiritual master. Fixedness upon his orders is determined intelligence and devotional service. And only by being fixed on his orders can such determined intelligence prosper. So you get the idea. Spiritual master is a senior, and we should accept him like that, and particularly very much. And then even your senior godbrothers, godsisters, that's there. And we mentioned, didn't we mention, about how the husband is, traditionally at least, a senior. So, are you ready, ladies, for me to read a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam which talks about this? Are you ready? Fasten your seatbelts again. Okay. This is 7:11:28. 7:11:28. Santushta lolupa daksha dharamagya priya satyavak apramata shuchi snigdha patim twa patitam bhajet. A chaste woman should not be greedy, but satisfied in all circumstances. She must be very expert in handling household affairs and should be fully conversant with religious principles. She should speak pleasingly and truthfully and should be very careful and always clean and pure. Thus, a chaste woman should engage with affection in the service of a husband who is not fallen. There's a little twist at the end there. Yeah. A husband who is, the verse says, apatita. Patita, of course, means fallen, degraded. Apatita. Not fallen. And let me just read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Do you find this interesting, ladies? Or do you find it a little, are you uncomfortable with it? We don't want to oppress you. So this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. Please listen. Hare Krishna. Bienvenue. Assise. Prabhupada says, it is recommended, therefore, that a chaste wife not associate with a fallen husband, A fallen husband is one who's addicted to the 4 principles of sinful activity, namely illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. Specifically, if one is not a soul surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is understood to be contaminated. Thus, a chaste woman is advised not to agree to serve such a husband. It is not that a chaste woman should be like a slave while her husband is Naradama, the lowest of men. Okay, that's the basic idea. So you can look in, if you noted the verse number, you can look there in the Bhagavatam 7th canto, chapter 11, around about that verse. I think there's a few verses actually. Yeah, here's this. Let me just read the translation of the 2 verses immediately before this verse. A chaste woman must dress nicely and decorate herself with golden ornaments for the pleasure of her husband, not plastic ornaments from Shanghai. Oh, it doesn't say that. That was just me. Always wearing clean and attractive garments, she should sweep and clean the household with water and other liquids, so that the entire house is always pure and clean. She should collect the household paraphernalia and keep the house always aromatic with incense and flowers, and must be ready to execute the desires of her husband, being modest and truthful, controlling her senses, and speaking in sweet words. A chaste woman should engage in the service of her husband with love, according to time and circumstances. But as we read a few minutes ago in the following verse, the husband who is apatitam, not fallen. If he's fallen, and let's face it, we're well aware that there are cases like that. And we're also well aware that there are devotee husbands who have wives who have fallen. So anyway, we don't want to get too much into detail and all the different possibilities. If the husband is half fallen or quarter fallen or something like that, and it can get a little technical, but these are important points to bear in mind. So okay, there's some things then about dealing with seniors, different types of seniors. Now, let us just very briefly, it's in one sense, it's most important to know how to deal with seniors. I mean, it's all important, but most important is how to deal with seniors, because if you offend seniors, then the reactions are greater. It's more bigger aparad like that. I mean, it's certainly aparad if you offend equals, and it's aparad if you offend juniors also. Anyway, okay, let us just briefly say a few words about equals. Now, we sort of hinted at the main point, basic point, some minutes ago, when we said the basic idea is friendship. But then we said not friendship in the ordinary material sense, where you get together and it's just, what you doing, where were you, and what did you do, and just sort of hanging out, as they say, hanging out together, and, you know, particularly gossiping about others for whatever reasons. So this sort of friendship, that material type of friendship, that is not what we mean. What we mean is, and here's another verse. It's a very, very important verse. And in many ways it applies in regard to friendship with equals. How we can express friendship and interact in friendly ways with people who are more or less equal to us. So it is nectar of instruction. And actually I didn't put the number of the verse down in my notes, but I think it's 4. Anyway, you can check. Dadati pratigrinati guyam akyati prichati bhukte bojayate chaiva shadvidham priti lakshana. Is that nectar of instruction 4? Is it 4? Okay, thank you. Translation. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Now, as we said, these 6 things can be done with seniors, with juniors, and with equals. In certain respects, at least some of them are very obviously relevant when dealing with equals. But I mean, they can all be applied on the different levels. Offering gifts in charity. You know what? When we go to visit our senior, Radha Golokananda, okay, Krishna Balaram, they're our seniors. You know, the etiquette is, you should always take a gift. Did you know that? It's always good to take a gift to the deities. At least some flowers, a fruit, or something like that. It's a very nice gesture to a senior. It's also a very nice gesture to an equal. Sometimes devotees ask, you know, if they upset someone, sometimes they ask, what can we do to repair the relationship? A good idea, something we suggest is, give them a gift. If someone gives you a gift, particularly something nice, if they find out what you would really like, if you give someone a gift, it's really hard for them to stay angry with you. So these are 6 ways of exchanging love, and in many ways they're relevant with equals. Giving gifts, accepting the gifts, not refusing the gifts. You know, Srila Prabhupada, and not just Srila Prabhupada, but even and many devotees who are very, very senior, they're given a lot of gifts. Prabhupada would be given watches. Like every week, he would be given a new watch. And he would wear it for a few days, and then someone else would give a watch, and he'd give that one away. And Prabhupada would be given pullovers, piles of pullovers. And same thing, he'd wear it for 1 day or 2, And when he's given the next one, he'd give that one away. And what he would not do, he would not refuse gifts. And not because he's just trying to accumulate things, but because it is an important etiquette. If someone offers you a gift, particularly a devotee, you should accept it. You should accept it. Even someone or some devotees gave Srila Prabhupada a cowboy shirt. You know, the Wild West, all that, Jesse James and so on. A cowboy shirt with a collar and sort of decorated, and a cowboy hat. You know, wow. Talk about Rasa Basa. Boy, oh boy. But you know what? Prabhupada accepted them and he wore them once. And there are photographs of Prabhupada with this cowboy hat on and this kind of way out looking shirt from the Wild West. Yeah, he wore it once. So we should understand like that. We should give gifts to other devotees. In regard to householders, one devotee one time, Prabhupada was visiting that temple where he was resident, and the day before, that devotee had been married. It was their wedding. The day before, and Prabhupada had been there. So the next morning, that devotee went on the morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. And as a brand new householder, taking his first steps in Grihastha ashram, and now he's on the morning walk with Prabhupada, he thought he would take advantage of the opportunity and ask Prabhupada about household life and what to do and how to be a good householder. So he asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what are the duties of a householder? Prabhupada turned around, looked at him and said, be generous, don't be miserly, and turned around and walked on. And the devotee thought, what? You know, I thought he was going to say some profound things about, you know, whatever, very philosophical, deep things. Anyway, so then a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks later, Prabhupada had gone to another temple, but that devotee was there also in the other temple, visiting. And again he went on the morning walk, and again he thought, let me ask Prabhupada about the duties of a householder, thinking that, you know, maybe the other day Prabhupada was just sort of, you know, didn't want to get into it, or he had something else on his mind. So on the morning walk he asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what are the duties of a householder? Please explain. Prabhupada stopped and looked at him and said, be charitable, don't be miserly. So you must know, householders, it's a very important practice, discipline. It's a discipline for householders. This here, offering gifts in charity. Yeah. So offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence. It means more or less, well, it can mean different things. It can mean just discussing Krishna consciousness together. You know, I read this yesterday, what do you think? That sort of discussion. Or, did you read the latest Back to Godhead? Did you see the article about something? And then you can discuss it, as opposed to gossiping and just chit-chat. And how are you? Kimanye. I mean, it's not bad to ask devotees, Kimanye. Comment allez-vous? How are you? There's nothing really wrong with it. But, you know, it's sometimes or often, it's just like an automatic formality. In South Africa, the people, some of the people there, it's such an automatic formality. You have to ask people how they are. And then they have to ask you how you are. I mean, they have to say how they are and ask you how you are. And then you have to say how you are. And it's so automatic. I've had experience on many occasions. They ask, how are you? And you don't say anything. And they say, I'm fine. You get it? It's their spontaneous answer, although you never ask them. So anyway, Prabhupada once was asked by someone, you know, in a very artificial way, like, I'm just asking you as a formality and I really don't care. How are you? And Prabhupada said, what difference would it be to you how I am? What difference will it make to you? If I'm well, can you help me? If I'm fine, what are you going to do? You know, in other words, we shouldn't be sort of plastic. We shouldn't be plastic in our exchanges with devotees. But we should reveal our minds to suitable devotees, like have discussions. If we have problems, if there's something we feel we need some advice on, we should inquire from a suitable devotee, not just the first one that walks up to you. Because you know what happens? It happens so often. If you reveal your mind, oh, I have some problem or other, and you reveal that to the wrong person, suddenly everyone starts walking up to you and saying, oh, I didn't know you had that problem. And you become the talk of the town, or the talk of the temple. So inquiring, revealing one's mind in confidence, and then Prabhupada translates inquiring confidentially. Basically what he means is, if someone reveals their mind to you, then you should try and help. You should try and help if you can. And you shouldn't just think, you know, I don't want to talk about your problems. You should try to help. Yeah. So we should reveal our minds to suitable people. And if, you know, people who value us, and if we value them, people who come and reveal their hearts to us, we should accept that and try and reciprocate appropriately. And then accept prasad and offer prasad. Well, I don't think that's a big problem, is it? Shouldn't be. Just imagine if the Yuga Dharma was not chanting the holy names, but was eating prasadam. Just imagine. What would life be like? It would be very different, and our physiques would be very different too. So, you know, there's a nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 9. Machchita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantas chaman nityam tusyanti charamati cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So in one sense, this is expressing very nicely dealings between equals. They derive great satisfaction and bliss from enlightening one another and conversing about Krishna. Or as Prahlad said, to his equals, he was attached like a sympathetic brother. You know, I mean, it's really clear, so nicely put. Let us say a few words about dealing with juniors. Well, before I go on to that, let me just mention a sort of slightly, could be technical consideration. How are we going to determine who is senior to us, who's equal to us, and who's junior? It's an important question. In some cases it's obvious. In some cases it's obvious. In other cases it may not be obvious. But, as you could say, a rule of thumb, just a basic type of idea. If someone was initiated before you, particularly if it was, you know, some time before you, then basically they would be your seniors. If someone was initiated approximately the same time as you, you know, roughly the same time, they're basically your equals in Krishna consciousness. And if someone is not initiated but you are, or if someone was initiated like, you know, quite some time before you, then they're juniors. It can also, well, then there's material age. It's a consideration. Even if, you know, I have disciples who are older than me, although I'm getting a bit old myself. But, you know, and of course, you know, they try, they don't just try, but they accept the role of disciples and a junior position. But at the same time, even as a spiritual master, one has to bear in mind in such cases, the person's older than me. So, you know, some special considerations in terms of dealing, and you can't be sort of so forceful, you know, as you might possibly sometimes be with younger people. Then, you know, someone might also become junior if they're devotees, but somehow or other they become fallen. Their spiritual position deteriorates seriously. Then, even if they are senior in other terms, like by age, by initiation, I mean, let's face it, there are disciples of Srila Prabhupada who are just, you know, really not practicing Krishna consciousness anymore. So spiritually, in that sense, they're in a junior position, even to someone who's just been a devotee for some years, and it's not good for them spiritually if you sort of artificially treat them as spiritual seniors, and if they start thinking they are, whereas actually they're in a sort of degraded condition. So, you know, this is consideration. Okay, let's say a few words about juniors. Juniors, the basic idea is compassion. As we said, parental. The rasa is parental. When you're dealing with people who are juniors, the rasa, the basic mood, the underlying emotion should be parental, caring, affectionate. and guiding like that. Like we read again about Prahlad, he treated juniors like he was their father. So we should encourage the juniors. You know, sometimes I meet a very new devotee, really new, and they walk up to me and say, "You know what? Today I chanted 1 round and followed 2 regulative principles." And what do you say? Do you say, "Well, you're out of it," you know? No, you don't. You say, "Well done, very good, keep going." But someone else may come and say, "Today I did 15 rounds and followed 3 regulative principles," and then you might have to chastise them a bit, or something like that. Yeah, so with juniors, it's very nice and it's important to encourage them and not discourage them. I've had the experience of being in a room and there's one devotee who's been there sweeping the floor, sort of junior devotee, sweeping the floor in a certain way. And you know, if you get into sweeping floors, there are different techniques and standards, and it's a whole subject. So there's this devotee sweeping the floor, and some other little more senior devotee walks in and says, "Why are you doing it like that? Don't do it like that. Do it like this." And the poor new devotee says, "Oh, okay, sorry." And now he does it in this other way. And about 1 minute later, another senior devotee comes and says, "Why are you sweeping the floor like that? Oh no, do it in some other way." And the poor devotee, I'm sure you can understand, their head starts spinning. So, there is a little phrase, you may have heard it before. It actually comes from a management guru who's not a devotee, but it's a good one. Catch them doing something right. Don't just catch them doing something wrong. You know, that's oftentimes the orientation towards juniors. Catch them doing something wrong. But a nice thing amongst Vaishnavas is catch them doing something right and appreciate them. Because in general, criticism, this is an important point, just in general, criticism is, well, according to Vedic standards, you should only criticize your sons or your disciples. If you have no sons and if you have no disciples, that means you cannot criticize, chastise actually. You cannot chastise anyone. And there's one young devotee, she's now, you know, like almost 20, but when she was a child, 6 or 7 years old, she's a very nice little devotee girl, just a little angel. And she and her family, they were listening to a class of Srila Prabhupada. The whole family, they're initiated devotees. And in the class, Prabhupada said this, exactly what I just said. You can only chastise sons or disciples. So a few days later, this young girl, at the time 6 or 7 years old, did something supposedly wrong, and her father started chastising her. And she said, wait a minute, just hang on. Don't you remember what Prabhupada said? You can only chastise sons and disciples, and I'm not your son. Yeah. And you know, according to Vedic standards, children, women, and old men, and cows can never be chastised. Yeah. And should never be punished. That's a good one, ladies. Isn't that a good one? And old men. That's me. So, children, women, old men, and cows should never be chastised. Yeah. And Prabhupada would not tolerate in our schools, our gurukuls in those days, he would not tolerate the use of corporal punishment, hitting, physical violence to the children. Wouldn't tolerate it. Okay, so we're talking about dealings with juniors. Yeah, encourage them, don't put them down. Listen if they approach you with problems, try and help them. Keep an eye on them so they feel cared for, so they feel sheltered. It's nice. It's very nice. So these are some thoughts on dealing with juniors. Should we take a tea break, or should we just carry on? Satva Jai. Just carry on? Are you ready? Are you okay? You're not dreaming of prasadam yet. Gropwa and Shushu. Yes, yes. Oh, we'll have a small break. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's take a break for 10 minutes. Is that okay? 10 minutes. Take a break. Stand up. Sit down. Whatever you like. And we will carry on in 10 minutes. Okay, okay. Huh? Are we ready? Yes. Wait. Okay. LA. What I think we'll do now well, I want to talk a little bit about different devotee qualities. There are 26 qualities of a devotee. Before I do that, I just want to, there's one sort of concluding point, yeah, I guess you'd say, in regard to what we've been saying about dealings with seniors, equals, and juniors, and in this case particularly with seniors. And the example is, it's the example of Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri, and how they related with their spiritual master, who was Madhavendra Puri, and the different results they got as a result, the results they got as a result. So I'm going to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 8, verse 32. Madhya Lila 8:32. Mahad anugraha nigrahera sakshi dui jane e dui dware shikaila jaga jane. Ishvara Puri received the blessing of Madhavendra Puri, whereas Ramachandra Puri received a rebuke from him. Therefore, these two persons, Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri, are examples of the objects of a great personality's benediction and punishment. Madhavendra Puri instructed the entire world by presenting these two examples. Some of you may be familiar with this story. It's really the story ultimately of Ramachandra Puri, who was offensive, and he achieved a sort of disastrous result. So it's to do with Madhavendra Puri though. Madhavendra Puri appeared 2 generations before Lord Chaitanya, and he was a very, very great devotee, and he had a number of disciples, some number of disciples. Amongst them were these two, Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri. Each one of them is Puri. Just try and follow it. Madhavendra Puri is the guru. Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri are the disciples. So it's a long story, and actually it's an extremely interesting story, but I'll keep it very brief. Is that Madhavendra Puri was in the process of passing away. He was very old, and he became bedridden and just incapacitated. And his different disciples from all over, they were coming and visiting him and paying their last respects to him, because they could see he was going to pass away very shortly. So while he was in this condition, he was lamenting in Krishna consciousness. He was reciting a verse. Ai dina dayadranathe, maturanatha kadava lokyuse, hridayam twad aloka kataram, dayata brahmyati kim karomyaham. O my Lord, it's a prayer to Krishna. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So this was his prayer, his lamentation in separation from Krishna as he came to the end of his life. So these two disciples then, Ishvara Puri and Ramachandra Puri, they came to visit him. Ishvara Puri, what he did, seeing the condition of his spiritual master, he decided to help him, because he was incapacitated, he was bedridden, he couldn't even stand up, let alone, do anything for himself. So Ishvara Puri would wash his body, change his clothes, clean up his stool and urine with his own hands. All these very, very basic and very personal things. And all the time, because he was serving his spiritual master, and he was just appreciating the relationship so much. All the time, even though he's doing these very, not such wonderful things, people generally would not really like to do that sort of thing. But because he was doing it for his spiritual master and he was fully Krishna conscious, he was ecstatic and he was just chanting and singing. And he was really happy. And Madhavendra Puri, the guru who was passing away, he appreciated this so much, it really just encouraged him at that difficult time. The other disciple, Ramachandra Puri, he was a real nonsense, a first-class nonsense. What do you say in Creole? Anyway, I will not suggest anything. But he was really a fool. And he saw his spiritual master lying there, just about ready to die. And he was lamenting and reciting this prayer. Oh, Krishna, I haven't achieved you, and sometimes crying in separation. And Ramachandra Puri didn't appreciate this. He had impersonal tendencies. So he's looking at his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, in this condition, lamenting and crying. And he also thought, I should do something for him. After all, he is my guru, so I should do something for him. What shall I do? Then he thought, I know what I'll do. I'll give him some good advice. And he told, this Ramachandra Puri told Madhavendra Puri, you know, why are you lamenting like this? Just sort of like an overly emotional person. You know, at this critical time, you should fix your mind on Brahman, the impersonal spiritual light. You should fix your mind on that and become detached. And don't be so emotional. Of course, Madhavendra Puri didn't appreciate this at all. And he chastised him. He said, you rascal, get out of here. If I see you when I die, I don't know where I'll go in my next life. So just get out. And so Ramachandra Puri left. But as he left, he was thinking, why did he speak to me like that? I was giving him good advice. So on one hand, Ishvara Puri, the good disciple, was serving so nicely, even doing these materially very unpleasant things, but very happily in Krishna consciousness and chanting. And it pleased Madhavendra Puri, the guru. And Ramachandra Puri, the bad disciple, displeased the guru so much, he ended up becoming a big offender of devotees. He would just go around watching devotees, trying to find their faults. And he'd point at them and say, you, what are you doing? Why you got no tilak on? And why have you got such big tilak on? You're trying to show off. And you got no dhoti on. And you got your dhoti on very nicely. You're showing off. So he would chastise everyone for anything. In this way he offended the devotees, although he thought he was helping them. You know, I'm a senior devotee, I should give advice and so on, give guidance. But actually he was just offending people. And eventually, you know what happened? He offended Lord Chaitanya. Ishvara Puri, because of his wonderful attitude and actions as a disciple, he got so much mercy from Madhavendra Puri. He became such a devotee. Lord Chaitanya accepted him as his guru. Whereas Ramachandra Puri offended his guru, and he offended Lord Chaitanya, and he became basically a Mayavadi, an impersonalist. So like this verse here says that in this way the whole world can learn a lesson, how to associate with the spiritual master in the right ways. And even, you know, if you get chastised by the spiritual master, which will inevitably happen at least once in your life, Hare Krishna, and maybe more often too. Prabhupada told a story of how he was once publicly chastised. He was in a lecture given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's situation like this, actually, on the roof of a house in Calcutta, and there's a whole lot of devotees gathered. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was giving a class. Prabhupada was right at the back. And sitting next to him was an elderly gentleman who was hard of hearing, couldn't hear properly. And so every now and then he'd turn to Prabhupada and say, "What did he say?" And Prabhupada would turn to him and say what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had said, and then turn back and listen. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not appreciate this. It was causing a little bit of a disturbance at the back. So Prabhupada, there was at one point the man asked Prabhupada, "What did he say?" And Prabhupada was explaining, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stopped the class and just looked at Prabhupada. And everyone looked at Prabhupada. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to him, "Babu," it means, no, my dear sir, something like that. "Babu, would you like to speak? Why don't you come here and speak?" This is heavy. In front of maybe 100 devotees or something, in a kind of, you know, little sarcastic mood. "Would you like to give the lecture?" Anyway, then he carried on with the lecture. So Prabhupada was really embarrassed in front of all these devotees. But Prabhupada said that he treasured that moment. He treasured that moment when he got chastised publicly. And Prabhupada said he would remember it regularly and think how fortunate he was to get some correction in such a sort of vivid way. So if we get chastised by the spiritual master, particularly, even if we get chastised by anyone really, we should try and take it in a humble spirit. Humility is one of the great qualities of the devotees. Humility. Even one of Prabhupada's disciples, one of my godbrothers, who served Prabhupada very closely, was a personal assistant for some years. He told me personally that every day Prabhupada would chastise him. Every day. "Why are you doing like that? Why are you shaking your knee?" Hare Krishna. And he said sometimes Prabhupada would chastise him for something he didn't do. Yeah, and he knew he hadn't done it. Someone else had done it, whatever it was, and he had not done it. But Prabhupada would choose him. You know, why? Why this? And what are you doing? And strongly. So after this had happened on numerous occasions, this devotee decided he would, next time it happened like that, he got chastised for doing something but he didn't do it, he decided he would tell Prabhupada. So he did. So the next time Prabhupada chastised him for something he didn't do, he said, "Srila Prabhupada, you know, this, whatever it was, actually it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was someone else." And Prabhupada said, "I know. I'm just trying to break your false ego." Yes. Okay. So what we'll do now, we will move on to having a look at some of the qualities of a devotee which we should develop, and indeed which we should try to cultivate. And if we see we are doing The opposite, if we're doing wrong things, we should try and stop ourselves. So there are 26 qualities of a devotee. They are listed out. They're in Chaitanya Charitamrita, unfortunately. Oh no, here they are. Oh no, they're not. Anyway, they're somewhere there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They're also in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. They appear there. Let us just read through them. I'll read through all 26 quickly and say a few words about a few of them. So, number one, a devotee is kind to everyone. Number two, a devotee does not quarrel with anyone, but rather tolerates others. Tolerates others is the basic idea. Number three, the devotee is fixed in truthfulness. Number four, the devotee is equal to everyone. Number five, the devotee is faultless. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Number six, the devotee is charitable. Number seven, the devotee is gentle, mild. Number eight, the devotee is clean. Number nine, the devotee is simple. Means lives in a simple way, not accumulating all sorts of stuff. Simple living, high thinking. Devotee is simple. Number 10, the devotee is benevolent. It's kind of the same as, was it the first one? One of the first ones. Yeah, kind to everyone. Kind to everyone is more in terms of attitude. Benevolent, number 10, is more in the sense of actually doing things. The Sanskrit term is sarva para sarvo pakaraka, which means doing welfare work. 11, peaceful. Mild, we said gentle and mild, that was another one. That means more just in terms of how they conduct themselves, mild-mannered. Peaceful means more if there's a disturbance, but still you remain peaceful. So it's a little subtle difference there. Number 12, completely attached to Krishna. 13, no material hankering. Akama is the term. Means basically no lust. 14, the devotee is non-acquisitive. Doesn't try to acquire things. It's kind of connected to simple, but there's also subtle difference. 15, steady. Or, for example, fixed in determination. 16, self-controlled. Means not affected by lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy. Self-controlled. 17, does not eat more than required. Okay. 18 You know, there's a saying in Russia, they say, hunger is the best chef. Get it? Hunger is the best cook. When you're hungry, anything tastes good. When you're not hungry, when you're completely not hungry, totally not hungry, then even the best things, you're just not interested. Okay. Number 18, the devotee is sane. Devotee is sane, not insane. 19, the devotee is respectful. 20, the devotee is humble. 21, the devotee is grave. Serious, basically. But not serious like dull and just, oh, sort of, I'm so serious, I'm depressed about it. But still, and so we kind of forced to go out and distribute books. And even if we're not enjoying it, and even if it's a struggle, but it is a merciful activity. And through acting in that unselfish way, through acting in that way for the benefit of people, our selfishness in our hearts, which is a big thing, I, me, and mine. It's a big thing. I am the focal point of my life. So that like rock within the heart, it gradually becomes melted and the heart becomes softened if we perform activities which are merciful, even if we don't feel the emotion mercy. And gradually will come, the heart will soften and the emotion will arise. And actually, Prabhupada gives the example, interesting example, to illustrate the specific point. Traditionally in India, going back, say, 100 years, 50 years, or whatever it may be, there was, all marriage practically was arranged, and people were married as children. Although they would not live as husband and wife, of course, as children until they became young adults, but they were married. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he was married to his first wife, she was 6 and he was 10. Yeah. And at that age, you know, they don't really know what is going on here at all. And so there's no feelings, like any sort of conjugal feelings at all, nothing. But the parents would engage the girl in serving her husband occasionally. Here's some prasadam, take it to your husband. Normally he'd be sort of living in the locality. Go next door, take some prasadam to your husband. And so she just, you know, 6-year-old girl, takes some prasadam. There's no emotion involved. But gradually, over a period of years, and understanding this is my husband, and gradually coming to understand what it means step by step, gradually some emotion would arise. And then when they're actually adults and then they come to live together as husband and wife, the marriages would almost always be successful, and some of them were like incredibly successful. To the point that when the husband died, the wife would want to walk into the cremation fire. Yeah, because living would be more painful than dying in separation from a husband. And there was no divorce. So anyway, if we act in merciful ways, gradually the emotions will arise, and the selfishness, the hard knot in the heart, will become melted away. So that's an important one. Here's another one, tolerating others. Well, number 2 was don't quarrel with people and rather tolerate others. How about this? Once one devotee approached Srila Prabhupada and said, you know, this other devotee, some other devotee, he is too much. He is just too much. He does this, he does that, and it's just terrible, and he's too much, and I can't handle him. I just can't deal with him. And Prabhupada said, no, just tolerate him. Just tolerate him. It's okay. He's a devotee. And so the devotee said, but Prabhupada, he's like this and like that, and he does this and doesn't do that, and it's just too much, and I can't take it. And Prabhupada said, just try to tolerate him as I tolerate you. So don't worry. No matter how nice a person you are, and I'm sure you're all really nice, just really super duper nice, but don't worry, there is at least one person who is having to tolerate you. Don't worry. And it may well be more than just one. If you're lucky, it may just be one. Who, when they see you come in, they think, oh my God. Really. So we should try to tolerate the minor offenses of others and their minor, you know, like the eccentricities. Everybody has some funny little quirks. You know, maybe they move their legs when they're sitting down. Maybe they, you know, whatever, I don't know, pick their nose or something not so socially acceptable. Or maybe they have some habit that maybe they're too loud, maybe they're too soft, or maybe they make too many silly jokes. I mean, maybe they don't make enough jokes. You know, there's so many things that can be problematic. But we should try to appreciate devotees. I read the 26 qualities. Some of you wrote them down, I think, and you can look them up if you didn't write them down. We should try to learn these qualities, memorize them. And when we look at the devotees, we should try to see how this devotee has this quality and that quality. We should practice like that. And not when we look at the person, you know, certainly try not to look at them in a negative light. You know, why she wears a sari like that? What she's trying to do? She's trying to attract my husband. I mean, it may happen sometimes, unfortunately, but still, we should not be too quick to assume the worst with other devotees. Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan, in his purport on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 1, where Krishna says, because you're not envious of me, I shall explain to you the highest knowledge, because you're not envious of me. So in his purport, Baladev Vijayabhushan gives a definition of envy. He says, envy means that you look at a person and you search to find faults, even in the midst of many good qualities. He says this is envy. You search to find fault, even in the middle of many good qualities. And if you find a fault, then you think, aha, now I understand. I was always right. I knew he was a nonsense. Yeah. So, to counter envy, to counter intolerance and, like the propensity to too easily become negative towards other devotees, a very nice practice is to try to appreciate their good qualities in terms of the 26 qualities of a devotee. And if you want to take it a step further, what you can do, if you see that consistently some particular devotee is displaying some good quality, and you see it and you see it's nice, then if you want to take it a step further, from time to time walk up to them and tell them, thank you very much. I see that you're doing this and doing that. Maybe you're very steady. One of the qualities was steadiness. I see you're very steady in your service. You're always there. And I want you to know, I really appreciate it. And maybe give them a gift. Give them some Mahaprasadam or something. So this will help us to overcome our propensity to too easily become negative towards others and be too intolerant, like this. And if you cultivate it, then you'll see that those eccentricities and, like the silly little habits that the devotee may have, which, everyone has some habits, you'll see that they don't really matter. It doesn't really make any difference. The person's still a very nice devotee, and, it really helps to, feel at home in the association of devotees, and really feel comfortable in the association of devotees. So if a devotee, if there's some fault, what should we do? If there is a fault which is dangerous, spiritually dangerous, like for example you see a devotee smoking a cigarette, obviously that's very dangerous. Or if you see some devotee, for example, some devotee who is frequently becoming angry with other devotees, and you can see it's a pattern. So what do if there really is a fault? So if it is dangerous, if it's just a personality quirk or something, silly little habit, and it has no real significance, ignore it. If it's serious, try and help the person. If you can't help the person, maybe they won't accept your help, or maybe you're junior to them, you feel uncomfortable making some comment on their Krishna consciousness, then get some senior devotee to try and help them. Yeah. Okay. Let us quickly have a look at one more, and then we will finish for the time being. Here's a good one. Well, actually, just in the same vein, what we've just been saying about tolerating people and not criticizing. This is from, let's see, Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, chapter 13. I don't have the verse numbers, but it's somewhere there. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, chapter 13. and it's about Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Raghunath Bhatta would neither hear nor speak about anything of the material world. He would simply discuss Krishna and worship the Lord day and night. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnava's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. And Srila Prabhupada says, Raghunath Bhatta never did anything harmful to a Vaishnava. In other words, he was never inattentive in the service of the Lord, nor did he ever violate the rules and regulations of a pure Vaishnava. It is the duty of a Vaishnava Acharya to prevent his disciples and followers from violating the principles of Vaishnava behavior. He should always advise them to strictly follow the regulative principles, which will protect them from falling down. Although a Vaishnava preacher may sometimes criticize others, Raghunath Bhatta avoided this. Even if another Vaishnava was actually at fault, Raghunath Bhatta would not criticize him. He saw only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. That is the position of a Mahabhagavat. So we're not Mahabhagavats, and we should not artificially try to sort of act as if we are, or something like that. But certainly we should not criticize other devotees, and only take exception if something is really important. If there's some real fault which is actually dangerous. Otherwise, you know, everyone has their personality and character, and everyone has their ups and downs also. And we should try and tolerate that and appreciate their engagement in devotional service. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for listening very carefully. Merci beaucoup. I saw not many of you fell asleep. Well done. Maybe you were thinking of the prasadam to come. So I hope you found that helpful, and maybe at some point in the future we can carry on. This is a big subject, multifaceted subject, and there's a lot to learn, and it's very interesting, and it's extremely helpful. So again, thank you all. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Hare.